Hello, everyone, and welcome to another episode of Mind Your Mental. I'm your host, Dr. Raquel Martin. And today I actually wanted to talk about something that I feel like I have been discussing more and more parents. Now, I consider myself a new parent. I have two boys, a 6-year-old and a 3-year-old. Well, he's 5, but he turns 6 in a week. So I like round up. And I still consider myself a baby parent, okay? Because it's my first time having a 6-year-old. It's not my first time having a 3-year-old, but it's my first time having a 6-year-old, right? But it's also this weird dynamic because I have always trained in child and family therapy, family therapy, and I have a lot of children clients. I've also always taught youth, right? I always say my favorite clients are angry teens because one, they're so ridiculously dramatic that it's kind of just like, this is excessive, but I vibe with it. But also, you're going to use every single tool in your toolbox. And I feel like they're the population that's listened to the most and listened to the least. And I also just like being able to contribute to being able to provide a space for more youth. But one of the things I have to talk a lot about when it comes to parenting, like say we're talking about family therapy, is parenting out of obedience versus parenting out of respect. And they're two entirely different things. And most of the time, I will hear this thing like, oh, I just want my child to respect me. They need to know they need to respect me, which I get. And every single time I'm like, well, tell me what your definition of respect is. Because I just want to make sure we're on the same page at the end of the day. And we're not. Actually, there has never been a time when someone has given me their definition of respect and it was not obedience. They'll say, I want them to listen to me without asking any questions. I want them to do what's told. I want them to honestly anticipate needs and just do that. I don't want to hear no lip. And I'm like, right. That is obedience, right? Like we obey the police. Are you trying to build a long-lasting relationship with them? No. Obedience builds resentment. Respect builds relationships, right? And historically, generationally, Black people had to be reared out of obedience, honestly. I wouldn't even say rear, like, because my mom has always told me you rear children, you raise cattle. The way that Black people, enslaved Africans historically were treated, it wasn't even treated like humans. They were treated like animals. And when it comes to that realm, being parented or reared out of obedience, like, because it very much was life or death. You could have dropped a biscuit and lost your life. You couldn't look people in the eyes. You couldn't be told twice. Like you had to do what you do to make sure that you were able to survive in the first place. I think that's been passed down from generation to generation. Like, of course, right? Like the parenting styles just don't happen overnight. So when we think about the reason why so many people parent out of obedience, we also have to think about the fact that it was a necessity at one point in time that I can't repeat myself. You have to do what you're told and you have to do it immediately. But now that we're at a space where hopefully and prayerfully we don't feel the need to operate in that realm, I'm more so along the lines of parenting out of respect. First of all, I think there's so many different terms. I think people say gentle parenting and conscious parenting. I treat my children like human beings. I truly do. I treat them the way I feel as though they deserve to be treated, like as children with full humanity, not as little adults. And in thinking of it that way, children make mistakes. Children are there to learn. Children can't regulate themselves. You regulate yourself and then you co-regulate them. Children need to be things repeated to them 50,000 times, and then you're going to have to do it again. Oh my goodness. It's exhausting. I get it. I'm there right in the trenches with you, fighting for my life. But one of the issues is that like a lot of people don't see children, especially Black children, as children. Like we were adultified because it's justification for the harm that was caused for us. The reason why we're dehumanized is justification for the harm that was caused for us. Like when you other a group of people so much that you don't even see them as human, it's easier for you to act like they should be treated poorly. Like, well, that's not a human, like I would never treat someone who looks like me this way, but like this isn't a person. Right. And that goes down from generation to generation and it kind of just trickles down. So when I think about parenting, I make it a point to parent out of respect versus obedience. I will say it's harder though. It is harder. It is harder to parent out of respect versus obedience. Like you really do be feeling like you're going toe to toe with these children every single day. Like, oh my goodness. I can understand the old saying of like children are seen and not heard. I get it. It's easier. But I would also state that, do you want to do it easy or do you want to do it right? Because it's easy to make children fear you. you're bigger than them. They depend on you for everything. It's easy to make a child do what you want to do, which is pretty dangerous. But that's why it's also an honor to be a parent and be in a child's life in any way, shape, or form so that you don't violate that. So it's like sometimes I'll hear people having conversations about, I don't know if you call it gentle parenting or conscious parenting or parenting your child like a human being, as for like parents who are weak. But I would actually say it's for parents who are strong. It's for parents who understand that they need to take a step back and think about the impact of their actions before lashing out. It's for parents who have to regulate themselves to the craziness that's going on around them, and have a adult level response to a child and foster them into growth and development instead of screaming at them. Yeah, the parenting and having conversations with children isn't for weak parents; it's for strong ones, right? And I think people who see it the other way really just use it as justification for, I don't want to say taking the easy way out, but what's more difficult than regulating yourself, evolving the way you parent, and slowing down? I don't think there's anything more difficult than that. Like growth and evolving your mindset is difficult. So there's no part of me that thinks talking to your children is easy. It's not. Telling your kids to shut up is easier. It's true. Like it really, like you feel bad afterwards, but like just losing it is pretty easy. I mean, parenting is tough. It's the toughest thing I've ever done in my life. Parenting teaches me more about me than it will ever teach me about my children. Parenting is tough, right? So it's not the easy way out. And I will also say one of the things that we don't think about as Black parents is how fear and racism related stress really impacts the way that we rear our children and the way that we may oftentimes ask for obedience, or the way that we even talk to them and give them messages. When children are younger, it's easier to see them as like, when they're babies, right? It's easy to see them as like an innocent, oh, they still need me to burp them and pat their butt and all that. But they're children, in my opinion, until they're like 25, mindset wise. When they get older, though, we also as parents, and not even just parents, people who are in the lives of children, we also understand that they're not going to be seen as children for long. So this fear comes over us about how do we prepare them for the racism and oppression that they're going to have to deal with. And a lot of time, we do that by trying to enforce rules. We do that by trying to put fear in them. We do that by like putting more strict rules on them, shutting them down instead of having conversations, tell them to be quiet and not explaining ourselves. We do it by like doing that kind of parenting. And I definitely understand how it is protective, how we know how the world treats them. We've been on this world longer, right? Man, when I was younger, I couldn't stand hearing that all the time, but I get it. We've been on this world longer, but it also can contribute to severing the relationship with your children. It's not solely about the fact that we're trying to protect them. It's also about the fact that most of the time we don't even explain ourselves with it. Of course, because you feel like you shouldn't have to explain yourself to a child, right? Like, who are they to get an explanation from me? And I would say a human being. I don't do anything without explaining anything, right? Now, with my boys who, ask a lot of questions, I'm their parent. Come on, like this is obvious. Who ask a lot of questions. There are times where I'm like, all right, you can ask questions in the car, right? Like I tell my boys all the time, my most important job is to keep you healthy and safe. So while we're walking in the parking lot, it's not a time to ask me why the sky is blue, son. I'm really just trying to get us to safety, right? So like even having that as a routine, like, hey, I answer questions when we're in the car buckled up. I don't answer questions in the parking lot. Hey, if I'm telling you to move quickly, it's because it has to do with what? Keeping you healthy and safe, right? Like, and even doing that, if something happens where I make a mistake or I have to apologize, I do apologize. And then I talk about how I'm going to improve it later, right? Because I also feel like one of the ways to parent children out of respect instead of obedience is to apologize to your children. You're showing them that everyone makes mistakes, even adults. You're showing them that they are worthy of apologies and reforming your behavior, and that they're human beings too. And just because they have a certain age doesn't mean that you get to talk to them any old kind of way or treat them on any old kind of way. I apologize to my children all the time, right? So if you're going to parent out of respect versus obedience, one, know where it came from, enslavement of Africans, where a lot of things came from. You also have to acknowledge the fact that like for so long it was a requirement, but we're not in that place anymore, in order to move out of that realm and see what kind of parent you want to be. Like, see what kind of relationship you want to have with your children. There are so many people who are disturbed by their children going no contact. And I could totally understand that. But then you also have to take some honesty within yourself about like, well, how have I treated my child? Have I treated them like a human being? Why would they want to engage with me? right? Have we had positive encounters? Do I speak to them with respect? Do I converse with them and consider their opinion, or do I tell them that they have to have a relationship with me because they're my child? I don't operate in the realm of thinking that I am owed a relationship with my child just because, I evacuated them from my body. Like, it's not the case, right? Like, I understand that, like, with my children, I build a relationship with them the same way I build a relationship with anyone else in the first place, right? And if we're thinking about respectful parenting, if we're thinking about parenting your children in a way that they deserve to be treated, which especially with black parents, when we think about the term of like the world is tough, so I'm going to be tougher, I would love it if we took that out of our vocabulary, because like the world is tough. So I'm going to be a safe space for my children to land, because if there's anything that Black people across the globe can agree with, it's the fact that us as a people, and especially our children, do not get the care they deserve. So why would I ever treat my children the way the world treats them? The world don't treat them good enough, right? Like, and I understand and I know that, right? But the bedrock, the fertilizer that respectful parenting sprouts from is emotional regulation. And emotional regulation for you. Because children cannot regulate their emotions. Amen. Children, you regulate yourself and you co-regulate your child. You're teaching them how to respond to scenarios, right? So the yelling and the screaming. And then when you get mad when they yell or scream at someone, I mean, that's how they learn to deal with conflict. That's how you deal with conflict. I talk about making mistakes in front of my children. When they make a mistake and they call themselves names and they don't want to continue, and they've watched you make a mistake and call yourself names and not want to continue. That's where they get it from. They're modeling that, right? When they don't know how to apologize, or don't know what to apologize for harming someone, and you harm them all the time and you never apologize. Well, would they learn how to apologize? You don't apologize to them. The thought process is you apologize when you cause harm. You cause harm to them all the time and you never apologize to them, right? The bedrock is the where respectful parenting comes from. It's emotion regulation, it's acknowledging your emotions, and it's modeling that for your children. Now, I will say, I totally understand that it's really hard to extend compassion for others beyond what you provide to yourself. So it also starts with providing yourself with compassion. Like, how can you extend compassion to someone else when you can't extend it to yourself? And then it's also the fact that sometimes it genuinely is hard to parent someone in a way that you were never parented. And I can acknowledge that. It's very hard to have a client who has struggled with their child crying, not only just because it's annoying, because crying is annoying. Like, oh my God. What are we crying about? Oh, I cut your sandwich in triangles when you told me to cut it in triangles. Oh, my bad. I assume when you said that you wanted it, that's what you want. Cool. Go off. Like, crying is annoying. That's very much the case. But in this case, it wasn't solely because it was like a annoying sound. It was because of this thought process of, why should you, like, what are you crying for? I never would have been able to cry about something like this. I would have been treated so differently. I would have got my behind popped if I cried about this. So it's not only about the crying, which is developmentally appropriate. It's about the fact that you don't have developmentally appropriate expectations for children. Yeah, you would have never been able to sit still for 2 hours, but you shouldn't have had. You would have been able to sit still for 2 hours, but you shouldn't have. You're 4. That's developmentally inappropriate. But it's also the fact that it's hard for you to extend compassion and parent in a way that's different than what you were parented. Like, it's a mental block with that. So a lot of times when it comes to parenting out of respect versus obedience, you also have to reparent yourself. You also have to acknowledge that, like, okay, maybe my parents did the best of what they had, or maybe they didn't do the best of what they had. But like, my children are deserving of better. Like, I can acknowledge that maybe they did the best of what they had, but they also didn't have enough. So even with them giving me everything, it wasn't enough, and I suffered accordingly. And it's not blaming the parents. We can acknowledge that most of the time Black people in the community aren't given what they're deserving of in the first place. But if you're going to parent this way, you have to acknowledge that it's going to be more difficult. You're likely going to have to reparent yourself, and acknowledge when you make mistakes, right? Before you have punishment or discipline. Well, one, there's a difference between discipline and punishment. When you think of discipline, most people are church-going people. Think of disciple, right? Disciple, to learn, okay? Discipline is to help your child learn. Punishment is really just to make them have a negative outcome. And they're really different in different scenarios. Like, so many times parents of teens will take the phone away. Like, oh, punishment, because half the time the phone has nothing to do with the scenario. And I get it. You want them to experience the same amount of discomfort you're experiencing in the first place. But mostly, unless the phone is tied to the behavior, you will see them. It's like a knee jerk reaction. And then half the time, most of y'all don't even stick with the. You tell them they're not gonna have their phone for 2 weeks. You give them to them a day after they did the dishes for in the first place. So there's that. Ask yourself if you're trying to teach them, which is discipline, or are you actually just trying to. I mean, and you can acknowledge, just make them feel bad. Like, you want them to experience some discomfort. You want them to feel that muscle memory of like, okay. And this is why a lot of people hit children. It's like, I don't think you're taking it seriously. So in order for you to keep this message, I have to hurt you, which isn't true, right? And then also think about what your triggers are in the first place when it comes to parenting. So for me, whining drives me nuts. I want to rip my face off. My God, like I said, like certain things. Now versus my husband, don't even hear it. Don't even. I be like, you don't hear that? What is it? What? Like, so luckily there's a balance, but whining makes me want to rip my face off. Questions, a million questions, not so much. Now my husband, a million questions, he'd be like, I don't know, son. Ask your mom. Like, so we're very different in that sense. So I already know that when I hear whining, I'm gonna have to take a breath because it irritates the crap out of me. Right? I already know. So I take a breath before I say something like, oh, I can understand you better when you use your powerful voice. Please use your powerful voice instead of stop, instead of doing that. So I also know what my triggers are for when my emotional regulation is like at its limit, right? Also, the boys are really rough. I've gotten better at dealing with the roughness, but I genuinely, I didn't grow up with boys, so I've never seen anything like it. I don't know why they're so rough. I'd be trying to read a book. They're trying to body slam me. It's insane, right? But then also model what you want to see. When it comes to like parenting out of respect goes both ways. So I'm also a parent and a psychologist who's very open about sharing when respect needs to go both ways. Respect for example, other people's bodies, right? Like sometimes my youngest is a little space invader. So he like always wants to be up on his brother. He always wants to be up on me too. I don't mind it as much, but with his brother, I always state that like he's allowed to have privacy. I let his brother know that he's allowed to say, no, I don't want a hug at this moment. And that's also really important for children in the first place, because children need to realize like the first thing that comes with respect is like they're allowed to respect themselves and respect their body. So you have to provide them with that level of body autonomy and let them know that consent can be removed at any time. It's a very dangerous place where children don't feel as though they have control over their bodies just because they're younger, right? Like it's dangerous. And I think many of us can understand that why. When you think that like you have to give someone a hug because they're a relative, you have to give them a kiss because they ask, even if it makes you uncomfortable, like that's a really dangerous place to be. So if we're also talking about parenting out of respect, it starts with teaching your children that it's their body, it's their choice, they're allowed to respect their own body. And in doing that, consent can be removed at any time too. Like, we in our home, we talk about enthusiastic consent. There's a difference between saying yes and yes. Like it's important for them to understand the nuance as they get older. Because once again, we're growing fully functioning children. So we talk about that. We talk about like they're allowed to say no, respect. And then we do it with tickling. Like my son wants to be tickled. And then at one point he doesn't want to be tickled. He says no, we immediately stop. Now, not only is this important to rearing children, because we've all met adults who just didn't get that, but I also am incredibly aware that I am rearing 2 boys, unless they tell me otherwise. So when it comes to certain things that like are on my radar, like, oh, they said no, but they were smiling. I don't care. Walk out, be loudly walk out. Oh, well, you said no, so I'm leaving. I'm heading out. I want everybody to know you left that house. I want everybody you left that room. And then, I don't know, go to the store, go to a gas station. So they see you on a camera leaving that room and then call me. So like, it's a valid fear, y'all. Like, so many people don't understand. Like, it's not even just about consent. It's about enthusiastic consent. Some people will laugh and like say no. And I'm like, well, mama, you were tickling me and I was joking. No, I'm not. That's not how we do it. That's how we model, right? Like no means no at all times. This is just, I think most people have this fear, like with parents. I got boys. I'd be so concerned. But we do that by also modeling it. We model what we want to see. We want the children to talk about their problems. So we talk about when we're struggling with them, right? We want them to express themselves, so we express ourselves, right? And it does require more talking. My poor husband, this man, he doesn't talk a ridiculous amount, but like married to a psychologist who's also rearing two boys to talk through their problems. It's hard out here for that man, right? But that's because I want them to get used to expressing themselves. I want them to get used to the critical thinking. I want them to have it normalized, so that they know how to express themselves. And I also think it's important to shift your thought process, and this is really important with parenting, from like what are people going to think to like how does my child feel? Because yeah, I'm sure you can be at grandma's house for Thanksgiving or for Christmas and be like, oh, that child over here talking back, I would never. And it's just like, well, we don't have to worry about what you would do. This is not your child, right? I think it's more important to pivot to how does my child feel in that scenario. What will my grandma think with the fact that my child didn't want to give them a hug? Who cares? How does your child feel with the fact that you forced them to give somebody a hug when you're trying to talk about like respecting bodies and boundaries, right? I think it's more important to shift between that. And I think that's gonna be the most important thing because of course you want your family members to respect you. Of course you don't want somebody to think that you know your child walk all over you. You don't even know how to parent. Like it's the ultimate insult. When I somebody at one point asked me what's the biggest compliment that I could ever get, and it was when my mom said I was a good mom. You know, like it was when my mom said I was a good mom. So of course the opposite will cut like a knife, like hot knife through butter. Like it would feel awful. But I encourage you to pivot to like, how does my child feel in this scenario? And also acknowledge that you're going to make mistakes and feel comfortable with those mistakes. Apologize. And the best apology is verbalizing that apology, not taking somebody to the store, not giving them a Roblox gift card, not cooking them their favorite meal. The best apology is an apology without a justification, not with like but or because, and then change behavior and saying how you're going to change that behavior, right? In the first place and go forward and understand that you're going to make mistakes. It's really hard to parent in a way that's different than what you were parent. It's like an automatic thing to parent in the way that you were used to being parented, but it doesn't have to be permanent. Like I get it. The other day, what did I tell my son? I said we don't use the word hate in this house. I sounded just like my mother. And honestly, growing up, never understood why that was such a big deal. Never understood why it was such a big deal to say hate. Like automatically said it. Sometimes I open my mouth and my mother comes out. Like it's just it is what it is. Like you were parented for a significant amount of time, so you can also understand that it can take time to overcome it, and just manage it accordingly. But understand that like if you feel as though you want a relationship with your child, if you feel as though they're deserving of respect, if you want to give them the humanity that the world doesn't, and you want them to have critical thinking skills and be able to advocate for themselves, because shutting children down all the time makes it harder for them to advocate for themselves in all environments, not just with you. So when you're worried about like them being in relationships where they're constantly being talked down to, when you're worried about them not knowing how to ask the questions that are important. A lot of times when I deal with children that way, it's because they grew up in households when anytime they had a question, they were told they were disrespectful and they were shut down. Like if they can't build their emotional vocabulary, if they can't build their critical thinking, if they can't ask questions with their most salient relationships in a safe environment, why would they be able to do that with anyone else? With a teacher, with a family member? Why would they be able to do that in school? Why are you so frustrated that they don't know how to ask questions when you taught them that asking questions was rude? We gotta like break that down, y'all. So yeah, that's the biggest thing I wanted to talk about, the difference between parenting out of respect versus obedience. It is understandable. We have to acknowledge the historical context of that. But I, for one, think we all deserve better. I'm never gonna say like the world is tough, so I'm gonna be tougher. The world is tough, so I'm gonna be a soft place to land for my children, because my babies deserve better, like all children do. And even if you're not a parent, and if you're blessed enough to be in the lives of children, this is for you as well, right? It's not solely about parenting out of respect versus obedience. It's also about engaging with children out of respect versus obedience, and use all the tools afforded to you. All right, y'all, that's it for today. Remember to be kind to yourselves. 2 steps forward and 1 step back is still 1 step forward. That's just math. And have a good rest of your day.